Shabbat Shalom to all of you. It's what a wonderful opportunity to speak to you, especially on Shabbat, as we are now in a period between Purim and Pesach, a so-called liminal period, a period in between winter and spring, in between, if you will, the party-like environment of Purim. By the way, whoever thought that we'd be talking about masks again after Purim? But between Purim and Pesach, in order to balance out the levity and the frivolity of Purim, we have this preparation period for Pesach, that in-between time. And in our current situation, we're also in an in-between time, between what was and, of course, the unknown of what we will be. So I'll be talking more about prep for Pesach on April 5th. I also will be starting another class on Tuesday evening and on Thursdays at 1 p.m. for as long as we are in this situation. On Thursdays, not the Thursday of Pesach, but all the other Thursdays, I'll be just having a Zoom schmooze, an open opportunity for people to connect at Thursdays at 1 p.m. So hopefully we'll have a chance to speak to each other face-to-face in a manner of speaking over Zoom. So as we prepare for Passover, it's going to be a bit topsy-turvy this year. The topsy-turviness of Purim seems to extend itself to this Passover. The first Passover, in my experience, and perhaps in the experience of the Jewish community over the last, certainly since the war, has been unknown to us. And we've had the ability to invite friends and family and to rejoice in redemption. And our belief in redemption, of course, stems from the fact that we were redeemed on Purim by perhaps our own means of politics in the real world, of being part of a convincing, argument against the destruction of the Jews made by Esther and her courage. And on Passover, of course, is the paradigm of liberation that we have, and hopefully a harbinger of a time of liberation and redemption for the entire world. So, to live in liminality, to live in that in-between time, raises all kinds of issues for us. Today, as I'm recording this, it is Rosh Hodesh, it's the beginning of the month of Nissan, and 2 weeks from last night, we would begin, our Seders. But the in-betweenness of life, the in-betweenness of light and dark, the in-betweenness of health and, God forbid, illness, the in-betweenness of a time when we felt powerful, economically, safe for many of us, and the possibility of the great challenges to our economy when this will subside from a health aspect, leads to anxiety. But this anxiety can be somehow, I think, mitigated by a number of things. The first being that, one, we do whatever we can to keep ourselves safe and healthy. And I'm glad to see that many of us are following these directions quite carefully. Secondly, this has become an opportunity for many of us to spend time in a quieter and more calm environment. And perhaps this has helped for many to mitigate the anxiety of not having to rush, of not having to be somewhere in any specific place. But many of us are still working at home, and they're accomplishing a great deal to keep the economy going and to keep their lives as they were. And thirdly, and this I think is also very important, thirdly, we begin to see the possibilities of how the world might change, how there may be saving graces after this event subsides, and it may take a while to subside. One thing that's very vital is for us to be able to imagine. Our imagination is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. As a matter of fact, all of Jewish history, all of Jewish tradition, all of Jewish continuity is based upon our capacity to imagine. The faculty of imagination allows us to make a day of the week into Shabbat, a day that is Me'ein Olam Haba, a day as if it is the world to come, the world of redemption. It is imagination that brought together us around tables for a Seder. It is imagination that gives us the opportunity to reach out and to feel touched and to understand that our imagination is still the greatest, if you will, force of creativity that we have. And we shouldn't lose that feeling of creativity, that feeling of the fact that still there is much to be accomplished. And for many of us, the slowing down that we've been forced to have in these last weeks has given us an opportunity to maybe sit back, do some introspection, and think about how our lives, that our lives may be different, that we may want to avoid the kinds of pressures and the rushing and the anxieties of everyday life that many of us have faced in the past. And we trust we'll be able to withstand in the future and withstand during this current situation. So my blessings are that each of us find a place within ourselves, sitting still, catching our breath, expanding our breath, expanding our minds, expanding our souls. Shabbat gives us an additional soul, the capacity for a wider perspective, a capacity for seeing all sides of an argument perhaps, or all sides of a controversy, of understanding that other human beings too share our travail, and that what unites us is much more than divides us. That's the hope, and that's the aspiration. And it could only be achieved if we truly imagine it to be so. Because that imagination, as I said earlier, is a highly motivating thing in the creation of those things that we hold dear to us. So I wish all of us a Shabbat Shalom, not only of peace, but also of wholeness, of shleimut, and to open ourselves up to receiving Shabbat in a way that it invigorates us and that it makes us aware of the fact that the world of creation has within it its own order. And there really is no way to control that order except doing what we have to do in order to prevent, particularly in this situation, the furthering of this illness in our community and throughout the world. And we will have to be able to use our imagination to understand that this act of self-isolation is ultimately somehow giving us opportunities as well. My blessings to you, to your families, to your friends, and hopefully we'll use all the technology that we have to stay in touch. It's a marvelous opportunity. And I bless us all. Shabbat Shalom.